Hi, welcome to lesson 8, determining the equation of a line from 2 points. Just before the lesson gets going, I numbered these lessons wrong. So when I start doing the lesson, you'll hear me maybe refer to it as lesson 10 or 7. I got the numbers all goofed up. Just before it starts, this is actually lesson 8. So don't freak out when you're watching the rest of it and I start referring to it as lesson 10. I'm just getting mixed up from doing so many lessons a day. So lesson 8, here we go. Welcome to lesson 10. Determining an equation of a line from 2 points. Now before you stop playing, this video looks a lot like the last one. Very similar skills involved here. It uses a lot of the same stuff. In fact, this lesson is putting together skills we've already learned. All right, so let's first look at it. How would I find the equation of a line if they just gave me 2 points in a graph, which we've done before? All right, so here are my coordinates. So I'm just going to call this guy x1, y1, x2, y2, right? The 1s and 2s are just saying that they're different coordinates. All right, so let's graph the 1s here first. Let's graph this one. So -9 over, all the way over here, 1 down. There we go. There's -9. I'll just label it here, -9, -1. And let's graph our second point here, 3 over, 7 up. There's that guy. Okay, now we got to be super accurate for this to work out. We're going to use our ruler and draw a line through these points. Now don't just connect the dots like this, right? Anytime we draw a line, we want it to go all the way through the graph. Now this is where I'm going to have some trouble. You can probably do a better job than me. And if we're really accurate, we can get this to work out. Okay. So there's my line. Remember, whenever you graph a line, it should go all the way through the graph. So let's extend this a little bit. Put arrows on the end. There we go. If we have more than one equation on a graph, we should always label the equations at one of the ends of the lines, but we don't know the equation yet. All right, so let's find the equation. So what do we need? We need 2 things again, as usual, m and b. Y equals mx plus b. All right, so the b in this case is going to be the easiest one to find. The b is our y-intercept. And as usual, our y-intercept occurs, and that's just a name for where does your line cross the y-axis. And this is the y-axis right here. All right, that's why it's labeled y. So it occurs when the x-coordinate is 0. The b is the y-coordinate. So look, right here is where it crosses. At 0, 5. So that means b is 5. We got it. Great. The next thing to do is to find the slope. So how do we find slope from a graph? Remember our formula, slope from a graph is rise over run. Sorry. Now you want to go from a leftmost point to the rightmost point. So I can use this point and this point they gave me, or I could even use this point. I can use any 2 points on the graph. I'm just going to use the original points they gave me, right? Now you got to count carefully here. This is something we have to be accurate and get right. There's not a lot of excuses for getting this wrong at this point. We've been doing this for months, right? So my rise, I'm just trying to draw it really clear here, is the vertical change from one point to the next. The run is the horizontal change. So you can draw a right angle triangle in if you want. I know it's pretty sloppy here. I'm just trying to make it really obvious. So let's count the steps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have a rise of 8 between these 2 points. All right, so my rise is 8, and my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 8 over 12. Now that's reducible. We should always reduce fractions. Again, I'm not going to ask anymore to reduce them. You have to do it. It's always expected in math. It doesn't. If you roll in a grade 11 class and you don't reduce the fractions, you're going to lose marks. Okay? You have to know. So 8 and 12, we can divide those both by 4 and make it 2 over 3. So there's our slope. 2 over 3. Now remember what I said here, you can find the slope between any 2 points that you're sure about. So like look, even from here to here, what's my rise? My rise is 2. What's my run? My run is 3. So it's a lot quicker there. I didn't even have to reduce to get rise of 2, run of 3. Now let's not forget, when do we have a positive slope? When do we have a negative slope? If the line from left to right is going upwards, it's positive. If the line is going down from left to right, it is negative. So this is a positive slope. Right? We're always going up and to the right, up and to the right. If this line was going down, we'd be going down and to the right, down and to the right. So just like we read a book from left to right, okay? All right, so there's my slope. There's my y-intercept. I can write the equation. Y equals 2 over 3x plus 5. Now again, this only works out on a graph when we're doing it by hand if the numbers are really nice and they fit on a graph, and that's great for this. But what if the numbers get uglier? What if we have fractions and decimals and humongous numbers? We need a more efficient way of doing this instead of drawing a graph each time, and that's what today's lesson is about. What do I do when I have just 2 points? So let's move on to some examples. Okay, so let's talk about example 1 here. Determine the equation of a line that passes through these 2 points, right? All right, so how do we do that? Well, let's first start by labeling our coordinates. I'm going to call this x1 and y1, and this one x2 and y2. Now, why are we calling them 1 and 2? Just to differentiate that we have two different sets of points. It doesn't matter which ones are the 1s and which ones are the 2s. So if you would prefer to make this x2 and y2 and x1 and y1, that's fine. I'm just going to go back to what I had originally. I do it the same every time. I'm just going to go x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so step 1. The good news about all of this is you already have all these skills. So we're just putting together stuff we've already know. So step 1, right here. Find the slope by substituting the 2 points into the slope formula. This is a formula you have to have memorized if you're continuing grade 10 academic math. You got to know this really well. Slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. We've covered this in a previous topic, right? Remember, this is basically the same thing as finding the rise and finding the run. The rise is just the change in your y coordinates. The run is just the change in your x coordinates. Okay, so formula, we've done this a bunch. We've been finding slope for months now. Should be old news. All right, so let's substitute this into the equation. Don't forget, you should have a minus in the middle. So we got to be careful here because sometimes we're going to get double negatives. So I'm going to go 7 is y2 minus -1. A lot of us, if we make a mistake, we always just put 1 negative. It's 7 minus a -1, so it's a double negative. And 3 minus -9. All right, so let's see what we got. We actually have 7 plus 1 divided by 3 plus 9. So that gives us 8 over 12. And I'm just running out of room here. I think this is the same question as before, right? We're just doing this algebraically instead of on a graph. All right, so we get reduce your fraction, divide the 8 and 12 both by 4, and you get 2 over 3. Okay, so we got our slope. Check. Now at this point, we've already done slope formula, so that's old news. From this point forward, it's exactly the same stuff we did in the previous question, or the previous lesson. So what did we do in the previous lesson? Remember what we did here? Step 2. How do you find the b? We got to find the y-intercept, the b. You find your y-intercept by substituting the slope into the equation. We've done that before. And substitute either of the given points, okay, into the equation to solve for b. And the nice thing is you can choose which one. Now I'm going to show you on the first one, it doesn't matter which point you substitute in. When you do your homework, you do not have to substitute them both in. So don't flood my inbox saying, do I have to sub them both in? No. All right, so let me just move this bit out of the way here for a minute. And let's go through the process. So here we go. We're going to start with y equals mx plus b again, right? All right, so we know m is 2/3, so let's substitute that in. 2/3 x plus b. Now, choose a point to substitute in, your 1 or your 2 point, right? You pick, sub in one of them. So let's do both. Let's do it, I'm going to do it up here, okay? Let's do it where we sub in -9, -1, and I'm going to do another one. I'll try and squeeze them in here when I sub in 3, 7. All right, so I'm just going to show you that it shouldn't matter which way you go, okay? So don't forget, this is your x, this is your y when you substitute in. Okay, so you can pick. Now, if I was picking, if it were me right now, I'd pick the easiest one. I'd pick this one. Look, there's no negatives in it. I'd take the easiest path. You don't get bonus marks for choosing the harder one, okay? Pick the one that's the easiest. Now, what's the advantage of being able to sub them both in? If you have the time, you can actually double check if you did the question right, because if you get the same value of b in the end for both, it's probably a pretty good indicator that you did everything right. All right, so let's sub this in. So we are going to replace the y with -1, so I'm substituting into this equation right here, okay? So we're going to make y -1. We already have the slope as 2/3. We're going to make x -9 plus b. All right, so let's see what happens here. So I'm going to go, well, 3 and 9, I can divide 9 by 3 and just get -3. So I have -3 here times 2, which is -6. And I'm going to add 6 to both sides to get it off of this side. So -1 plus 6 equals b. We got b equals 5. I'm just going to flip it around here. B equals 5. All right, -1 plus 6 is 5. Let's check the other one to see if we get the same answer. All right, so we're going to make y 7. The slope is 2/3 and x is 3. All right, so here we go. So again, I can go 2 times 3 is 6 and then divide it by 3, but I just like to reduce. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2, so I have 7 equals 2 plus b. To get rid of the 2 from the side, we have to subtract it. 7 minus 2 equals b, and we get b equals 5 again, right? So it doesn't matter which way I go about it. We're getting m, we're getting b. All right, so let's just summarize. Do we have everything we need here to write our equation? I'll just do it over here. M is 2/3, check. B is 5, check. Those are the two pieces of information we need to write our equation, unless, of course, it's a horizontal or vertical line, those two weirdos, but we'll get to those at the end. All right, so my equation is going to be sub into y equals mx plus b. Y equals 2 over 3x plus 5. And there's my equation. Now hopefully you can lay your work out a little better. I know I'm squishing everything onto this page here. I could do a better job myself too. All right, but there's our equation. All right, so we're going to do a couple more examples, just looking at the little things you got to watch out for. But this is how you find the equation when you're given 2 points and you don't want to make a graph. All right, in example 2, we're given 2 points again, 1, 2, and 5, 10. And instead of using a graph, I'm going to do it all algebraically. So I'm going to start by labeling them x1, y1, x2, y2. Sorry, I got to be a little more neater here and print slowly. My letters are getting too sloppy. All right, so let's sub that into our slope formula. So slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You roll in the grade 10, day 1. You should have that formula memorized, all right? So here we go. 10 minus 2, 5 minus 1. We have no double negatives here to worry about. So 10 minus 2 is 8, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So there you go. There's our slope. Cool. So now we just need to figure out what is b, right? That's the next step. What's b? All right, so how are we going to do that? Let's sub this into y equals mx plus b. So from this point forward, it's the exact same stuff as lesson, whatever the previous lesson is. I've lost track now. Oh no, did I call these 9 and 10? Oh no, this is the wrong lesson number. I'm just realizing when I labeled this, I called this lesson 10. This should really be lesson 7, but I don't have time to go back and fix all this, so oh well. We're actually in lesson 7 if you go back to lesson 6. Anyways, all right, so let's get back to this here. Substitute in the point, y equals 2x plus b. All right, so now we want to choose one of the 2 points and sub them in to solve for b. So pick the easiest one. I think 1, 2 is going to be the easiest one. So make sure you state in your homework what you're substituting in. So write down, sub in what you're doing. I'm just going to write sub in 1, 2. So x is 1, y is 2. So 2 equals 2 times 1 plus b, right? Or place the x here, place the y there. And now it's just a matter of solving for b like we've done before. 2 times 1 is 2. And I'm going to subtract 2 from the other side. And in this case, I actually get b equals 0. All right, so we've got all our information, right? We know m is 2. We know b is 0. So let's sub that into y equals mx plus b. All right, so y equals 2x plus 0. But we don't write our final equation like that. That plus 0 is nothing. So let's just get rid of it. And our final equation should just look like this. Y equals 2x. So when I see an equation like this, I know the slope is 2. And since I don't see any value behind that or in front of it, I know the y-intercept, the b, is 0. All right, let's jump to the next one here in lesson 7, not lesson 10. Okay, I'm sure you got the point by now, but I need to roll through a few more examples of escalating difficulty, right? Just to watch out for these little things. So here's our 2 points again. Let's label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Make sure you write down the formula when you do your homework. So this is the formula. I need to see that you know it and you write in your homework if you want to get full marks. All right, so we're subtracting the 2. Let's be careful. We're going to get some double negatives here, right? So I have y2 is negative 8 minus y1 is negative 2. And I have x2 is 6 minus x1 is negative 3. So we actually have negative 8 plus 2 divided by 6 plus 3. So negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. And we can reduce that and make our final slope into negative 2/3. Always reduce your slope. Always reduce every fraction you encounter for the rest of your life, forever and ever at the end. All right, now let's substitute that in to y equals mx plus b again. So we know the slope now, and everything beyond this point is just right back to our previous lesson. Pick a point, sub it in. Choose one or the other. It doesn't matter. So I don't know. I guess I'll just go with this guy, negative 3, negative 2. All right, so make sure you state what you're going to sub in. So I'm going to write substituting in negative 3, negative 2. You actually have to state it in your work like I'm doing. Basically, show the steps like I'm showing, and I'll give you full credit. All right, negative 2 equals negative 2 over 3 times negative 3 plus b. So I replace the x and the y, right? All right, so now in this case, look at this negative 3 and this negative 3 can reduce. Now let's just remind you again, I'm multiplying negative 2 times negative 3. Now if you don't like to reduce, don't forget there's an invisible 1 here and we're multiplying. So I can just go this times this times this. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. 3 times 1 is 3. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. There's your slightly longer way of doing it, but it works. The way I like to do it right is I'm just going to cross reduce here. 3 and 3, right? 3 divided by 3 is 1, or negative 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1, so there's a 1 there. And I'm just going to multiply the negative 2 and the negative 1, which gives me positive 2 anyways. All right, and in this case, we're going to subtract 2 from both sides to get rid of that 2, so it's going to be -2 minus 2. It's not 0, right? It's going to be -4. All right, so there you go. You got your m, you got your b. Let's write our equations. So let me just summarize here. M is -2/3. B is -4. We don't substitute the equation to our final answer, right? So when we sub into y equals mx plus b, we get y equals -2/3 x minus 4. Done. All right, let's do a couple more here where they're going to get a little messier, so check them out. Okay, starts out the same, but this one's going to have a nice shortcut, and maybe you spotted it already. Look at the points. Can you see where the shortcut's going to be out of these 2 points and where we might be able to do it? If you go back to lesson 6, you might know what it is. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's just start it like usual. I need the slope first. There's nothing I can do until I find the slope. So here we go. 13 minus -17, double negative, and -9 minus 0. All right, so 13 plus 17 over -9 minus 0 is -9. So I've got 13 plus 17. What's that going to be? 30 over -9, and we can reduce this. So if whenever we have a negative on the bottom, you are expected to always move it to the front of the fraction. We never leave negatives on the bottom of the fraction, okay? And 30 and 9, we can reduce by dividing them both by 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So our slope is -10/3. Now, find the y-intercept. You can do the usual business here. Sub in one of the points, solve for b. But remember, we have a shortcut. All right, so what's the shortcut? The shortcut is we already have the y-intercept. What's our rule for the y-intercept? The y-intercept is b. Okay, I'm just write y-int for short. It occurs when x is 0. That's b. Well, look it. They gave us the y-intercept. That is your y-intercept. It was given to us. So this is common. You might get a lot of questions where they give you the y-intercept. You can't use this point. It only occurs if the x-coordinate is 0. I can't stress that enough. Okay? Only if the x-coordinate is 0, then the other number is b, because that is your y-intercept. So guess what? We already know what b is. So I can just jump to the final answer here. M is -10/3. We still had to do the slope formula. B is -17. All right, so here we go. It's going to be y equals mx plus b. All right, and let's sub in what we know. Y equals -10/3x plus -17, so just -17. I don't have to sub in anything to find it. Now, if you don't catch that, it's okay. If you sub in one of the points, you're still going to get the same answer. You're still going to get b is -17 no matter what. So as long as you do the math correctly, obviously all your arithmetic, okay? So, but you can shortcut it. So keep an eye out. Anytime that x-coordinate is 0, not the y-coordinate, there's not a shortcut there, okay? Only if the x-coordinate is 0, you got yourself a shortcut in all these equations, okay? All right, let's check out a couple more and we'll be done. Okay, we got example 5, and it's got a lot of 5s in it. So here we go. x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's start substituting stuff into our equation. Don't forget to have those minuses in the middle in case we have double negatives. So y2 is 5, minus y1 is -4. So it's minus minus. x2 is -5, subtract x1, which is +5, so we don't have a double negative there. So I really have 5 plus 4 over, I'll do this in the next step, -5 minus 5. Okay, so 5 plus 4 is 9. -5 minus 5 is -10, and put that negative out front. Don't leave it on the bottom. So there's our slope. Done. Can't reduce that one. All right, so next, let's substitute in one of the points. Now, double check your points. Do any of them have the x-coordinate of 0, right? Nope. So there's no shortcut in this case. Oh, well. All right, so let's substitute that into y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx plus b. Let's sub in a point. Y equals -9/10x plus b. All right, let's pick one of the points to sub in. Which one do you want to do? Gee whiz, I don't know. They're both kind of nasty, so I'm going to go with the second point this time. I'm going to go with this guy right here. I don't know if it's really any better. Pick a point. If you don't know which one, flip a coin. Sub in -5, 5. All right, so that's going to be the x-coordinate. That's going to be the y-coordinate. So here we go. Let's be really careful. 5 equals -9/10 times 5 plus b. Okay, so we can do a little cross-reducing here. 5 and 10 reduce, right? Divide them both by 5. I get 1 and 2. Okay, so I reduce my fraction and multiply. -9 times 1 is -9 over 2 plus b. All right, so in this case, the fraction didn't go anywhere. So that's why I want to do one of these where we still have a fraction even after we reduce. And if you can't reduce at all, don't reduce, just multiply. So you just go 9 times 5 and 10 times the invisible 1, right? And then you can check if you reduce or not. Okay, back to this though. So what are we going to do? People get to this point and they just quit. We just have to get this off of this side and add it to the other side. So we're going to add -9/2 to get rid of it from this side, add it to the other side. And again, this is just some simple fractions. You guys should be comfortable with this at this point. We need a common denominator. So this is 5/1. So what's a good common denominator? Why don't we times that by 2 and 5/2? And they'll both have a common denominator of 2. So we have 10/2 plus 9/2 equals b. So I'm going to flip it around here. b equals 19/2. There you go. So let's write our equation. We have everything we need, right? We have m is -9/10. We have b equals 19/2. We can write our final equation by substituting m and b into y equals mx plus b. So y equals -9/10x plus 19/2. Again, that would be a really ugly one to try and graph. A lot easier to do algebraically. All right, let's get to the two last ones, the weirdos, the horizontal and vertical line, and then we're all done for the week. All right, example 6, second last example. This one will be quick. Here's my 2 points, right? And let's label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and let's just start subbing to our slope formula again. All right, minus in the middle, -3 minus -3, so a double negative, 4 minus 7. All right, so on top, our numerator is going to be -3 plus 3. On the bottom, 4 minus 7 is going to be -3. On top, -3 plus 3 is 0. We've got 0 divided by -3, so our slope is 0. Now at this point, we've done this enough. This has to start setting off some bells, okay? Anytime we have a slope of 0, especially for those of you continuing to grade 10, you need to know something. We have to have this memorized going forward now, okay? So anytime, forever and ever, that the slope is 0, right? Slope is 0. That tells us that this is a horizontal line, okay? We got to know that. And how do we write a horizontal line? How do we write the equation? Okay, so we don't even have to go into step 2 and step 3. This is just a shorty. All you do to write the equation is just write y equals b, right? Y equals b, which is where it crosses the y-axis. Now, have a quick look up here. We did this before, right? Notice how they have the same y-coordinate. Notice that it's -3, -3. If we were to draw a graph of this thing, I'm going to pause and draw a quick sketch for you. So right back at it here. All right, so let's think about where these 2 points would be, right? 7/3 down, so we'll just say that's around here. We'll just say that's around where 7, -3 is, and 4/3 down. 4/3 down. We'll just say that's around there. Now, notice how, again, if I get my ruler out here and draw a line through it, it makes a horizontal line, right? Well, where is B going to be for this line? Again, sorry, it's not perfect. Oh boy, that's not horizontal. There you go, good enough, right? There we go. There's my 2 points. B's right here. Well, what are the coordinates? It's going to be 0, -3, right? If we make a table of values for this one, every y-coordinate is -3, 7, -3, 4, -3, 0, -3. Pick any number you want, 100, -3. The x-coordinates, no matter what you make them, the y is always -3. All right, so how do we write the equation for this? It's super simple. We just write y equals whatever the y-coordinate is here. It's -3. We're done. The end. So horizontal and vertical lines, you can do really quick. You don't have to do all the extra work. Now, you could skip all the work if you notice there is a shortcut here. The shortcut is if you notice you have 2 points that have the same y-coordinate, which I have right here, that means I have to have a horizontal line, right? Look at our graph. If they have the same y-coordinate, right, it has to be horizontal. So you can just skip right to the answer and skip all of this work if you want. Okay. All right, so there's our horizontal line one more time. Let's check out the next one, which is going to be our vertical line one more time. Okay, final example for the lesson, example 7, x1, y1. Here we go. x1, y1, x2, y2. There's my points. Let's sub them in the slope formula. So I'm trying to find the equation. Now, some of you might already see where the shortcut's going for this and can guess what it's going to look like. -9 minus 5 and 2 minus 2. Well, on top I have -14. On the bottom I have 0. And that causes an error when you put that in your calculator because that's an undefined number in math, okay? We can write it down, but we don't define it, okay? Because you can't have 14 parts of nothing or, number. You can't have -14 or 14 parts of nothing, okay? So that's an undefined number. Now, again, this is a place where those of you moving to grade 10 are going to have to memorize some facts that you really got to know. Anytime that you have an undefined slope, always, if your slope is undefined, okay, every single time, forever and ever, that's going to make a vertical line, okay? So we got to know those two facts go together. And how do we write the equation? We just write x equals a. And what was the a again? A is just the x coordinate. So I can already tell you right now what it's going to be. Look, 2. Notice how it's 2. Notice how they had the same coordinates. So my final answer, I'll tell you right now before we draw a graph, is going to be x equals 2. Now let's prove it. Let's look at a graph real quick here. Okay, so I got my graph drawn. There's the y-axis. There's the x-axis. Now, if we plot these points, 2 over 5 up. Let's just say 2 over 5 up is, we'll say, right about there. There's 2, 5. And 2 over 9 down. We'll just say it's somewhere right here. I'm just doing kind of a rough sketch. Right off the bat, you can tell, oh yeah, obviously this thing makes a vertical line. Well, again, what is, oh boy, sorry, my points are not in a very good vertical line here, right? This guy should be a little more over there. There we go. Okay. So what's the y-intercept? Where does it cross the y-axis? It doesn't. Remember, this guy doesn't have one. So he doesn't have a b. Okay, so if you go back to the previous lessons and our previous work, right, he doesn't have one. Okay, so when we write the equation, now again, where would this thing pass the x-axis at, right? That's that a comma 0. It passes at 2 over 0 up. So that's why that's 2. Now you can just take that right from the points, like I said over here. So if I wanted to make a quick table of values for something like this, right, what's it going to look like? Well, here's your x coordinate, here's your y coordinate, right? They gave us 2, 5. They gave us 2, -9. I could put 2, 0 in. I could put 2, 100 in. I could put 2, -19.3 in. Doesn't matter. Every point on this line has an x coordinate of 2, and the y can be anything, okay? So horizontal and vertical lines, we don't follow the usual steps, right? We just write y equals the y coordinate for horizontal and x equals the x coordinate for vertical. So again, shortcut, if you notice that they have the same x coordinates and you just want to skip everything and just jump to here, that's how fast you can do the answer for these, okay? All right, so that concludes this week's lesson. Try the questions out and keep up the good work.